I'm exhausted today. Beyond compare exhausted today. Sleep has not been my friend lately. Sleep has been for someone else lately. Sleep has not been for me. I wish there was a good reason for it. Just like sleep, impaired, deprived, void. So everyone go home. We're out of here. Just kidding. I'll stick around and I'll try to be a reasonably perky host of this podcast. It would be really nice if YouTube showed me who was here in the chat window. I can't see who's here. I can't see anyone's name. So you all have to say hello in order for me to say hello to you personally. Yes, Rowdy. I will be perky just for you. You be rowdy, I'll be perky. It's about the best deal we can come to. Maybe. No. It'll be a weird day. Weird. I have so much stuff to write. So much stuff to write. It's an awful, tremendous mountain of things to write down for people. I'm just hoping that I can get through it all. Hoping. All of it's about SQL Server. None of it's about anything weird or foreign or strange. I'm not gonna start writing more Python. You're homesick, my goodness. How do you get sick? And you still in Texas? Last I heard you were in Texas. Who knows where you are now? Man about town. Man about the country. You could be in an RV, doing weird things. Of course, you're homesick today. You're a remote worker. Of course, you're homesick. Where else would you be? I'm not going to a baseball game. I don't even know if you like baseball. I'm sorry. It's terribly racist of me to assume that you like baseball. You could be a football person. I don't know. My docket for today consists of trying to get through writing things for clients about what's wrong with their servers, and then trying to put more of a dent in the training stuff that I'm trying to produce for my site. I have I have a lot of stuff written. I have a lot of decks made, a lot of demos written, and right now I'm up to the point where I'm going to do the query tuning bit. So I've done my intro stuff. Let's go read what I've done so far. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So I've got my intro stuff. I've got 4 decks in there about sort of starting sort of like a beginner's deck. I think it's probably my take on how to think like the engine, like the little engine that couldn't. After that, some intro stuff on indexes and weight stats and query plans, and then there's like a real. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that I can deep dive, but there's stuff you should know about the optimizer without going into holy crap, what's going on stuff. So it's high level. It's not very specific. After that, we talk about hardware. So we talk about all we go in depth on CPU, memory, disk, weight stats you'll see related to those, like when things get bad on a server, like when things start to fall apart. Some of that's based on my server tuning pre-con material. Then we get into some weird weight stats. So my weird weight stats list consists of all the stuff that people tell you should ignore that you should not ignore. You might have a favorite weight stats script that lists out a bunch of, you can safely ignore these. Don't worry about those, pal. But in reality, they're terrible. Terrible. Don't listen to people on the internet about SQL Server. They're all wrong. Wrong. After that, we get further into indexes. Talk about your normal run-of-the-mill row store indexes. Your clustered, your non-clustered. We get into some special indexes, and eventually when I feel like it. And this may be about when I feel like it. There will be stuff on partitioning. I'm not crazy about partitioning. I'm going to explain partitioning, but I'm going to compare it to one of my all-time favorite things in SQL Server. We'll get into that later. That's going to be a top secret. It's a big secret. And then after that's all the query tuning stuff is going to be like the easy, medium, and hard sort of leveled off stuff there. So, we'll have start with the easy stuff like the implicit conversions and the, like you don't have an index and sargability, and then we'll move on to the harder stuff. We tackling spools and giving them noogies and all sorts of stuff. That guy's a fan out there beeping. It's like, yeah, go, that sounds great. I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy that too. Training from you. And then eventually, I think after the query tuning stuff, it will be blocking and blocking. But it's never been my favorite thing in the world. Never been like, wow, I love blocking and blocking. So I'm trying to figure out how to approach that in a way that'll be fun. Because my favorite way to approach that is to turn on read committed snapshot isolation or snapshot isolation, and then just walk away from everything. But there's stuff that people should know about what makes blocking better and what makes blocking, how blocking is made. See, Alex says you should live stream yourself trying to automate stuff using Power. I have nothing to automate. I wish I had something to automate. I don't have anything to automate. Give me something to automate in my life. I would love to do it. Most of the things that I need to automate are done for me through biological processes. I go to bed, I wake up, things leave my body, things enter my body. It's a treat every single day. Artie says, I need some serious help with getting back into query tuning. Well, if you feel like you or others on your staff might benefit from the trainings of a decent looking consultant, I would be more than happy to yell at people about things. And in a nice way, though. I'll be more than happy to point, say, yes, this is something. You should do it. Stuff like that. That's helpful, right? That's what people want to hear about query tuning. Yes, you should do it. Yes, you should tune that query. Yes, that is slow. Tune it. Make it so. Aaron says RCSI should be the default. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. RCSI should absolutely be the default. It lines up much better with what people would expect from a database, I think. And beyond that, I think that it's unfair to throw pessimistic locking at people and expect them to not immediately go to using no lockings. I think it is wrong. I mean, morally, ethically, I mean, if I look hard enough, I can probably even find where it's legally wrong to do that. If you need a certain type of locking, you should be investigating the necessary hints or like SP get app lock in order to get the kind of locking you need. And the rest of us should humbly be able to live our lives without having to deal with locking and blocking just between readers and writers. It's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It's been a mistake for years. I can't say, it drives me nuts. The number of people I've seen just break down because they can't figure out why everything is slow sometimes or usually or something like that. And it's just locking. You go look at lock weights, and it's something like lock weights are 30, 40, 50% of server uptime, and the average milliseconds per wait is like 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds or beyond. And you're like, yeah, there's a problem. You found it. How are we going to fix it? It's just like RCSI is just that button. It's always right there. Always right there. And every other smart database does it. Every other smart database. It's not even like, not even like Microsoft would be the outlier. Not like Microsoft would get made fun of for being pessimistic by default. Microsoft would be like, welcome to the club. Thanks for joining us. You finally figured it out. How nice it is. Azure SQL DB is pessimistic or optimistic by default. You see why the box product has to be dumb and ugly. It's upsetting. Let's see here. Airlock says, I automated system inventory, server stats, but the server configurations, disk space information, patching completeness, count permissions on the server. Oh, wow. Yeah, you must have, do you have a lot of servers? How many servers do you do that for? That's what I'd be curious about. It's a very enterprisey thing. It's a very I have 20 servers and I don't feel like figuring this out. I'd also be curious if you have monitoring on those servers, like if you have a monitoring tool looking at those things. 120 get scanned. Holy cow! Not just for SQL Server either. Ooh, yeah. If I had 120 servers, I'd probably buy a bigger stake in PowerShell too. Me with my one server, I don't know that I. Yeah, SolarWinds. So there are things that I wouldn't wish on people, like burpees or herpes or turkey bacon. That list may or may not go on and extend to certain monitoring tools, but go with God. Go with God. Let's see here. Darren says, I did the same thing. Wasn't a good estate tool out there, but I do pay for monitor service. Sentry is much better than what I'd write. Yeah, Sentry One is, I think, if I had to pick a monitoring tool to work with professionally, Sentry would probably be it for me. That would probably be what I go with. I like stuff about it. It's not perfect. No monitoring tool is, but I think for what I do, Sentry One gives me the best roundup of information. Gives me the best I can point and click on some stuff and get stuff done. It's tougher with other. It's either really hard with other monitoring tools, or I just haven't had the luck of clicking in the right place with other monitoring tools. Sometimes I use other monitoring tools and I right click on something and I'm like, oh, I would love to right click here and get more information. And then I right click and it's like save as PNG. What? I don't want to save this. I want to do something else with it. I want to dig in. What is the point of you? It's ridiculous. Arnie says, been digging into custom queries against Sentry DBs. Lots of data in there. Yeah, I wrote a custom query in a blog post, and it's actually kind of a cool one. I was rather proud of myself for writing it. What it is, it's a query that looks in the Sentry One repository for queries that have waited a long time on getting a memory grant. So, and then it compares how long the query waited to get a grant and how long it ran after it got the grant. And it's usually crazy. I found some crazy stuff when I was digging through some client repos where it was 20, 30 seconds to get a memory grant. And then as soon as it got it, query's done. It's man, y'all need some memory. I can't sell you that, but y'all need some memory. I think really I should go into RAM sales. I think I would make a killing on RAM internet sales. The Sentry DB isn't the most intuitive, but it is elegant. I don't know that I call it elegant, but yeah, I think my biggest issue with it is like decoding some of the hashes in there, like using decompress or whatever. Someone's out there stealing a car or something, or maybe they just bumped into it. Who knows? There we go. But yeah, it's so like I always run into weird issues where like when I try to use decompress on like the encoded columns, where like it'll be like the value is corrupt, and I'm like, well, no, it's not, but I'm not gonna keep trying here. It's like, either it goes or it doesn't. I don't know. Let's see here. What else do we have going on? Anything coming in? I don't know why I always look to see if someone has asked me a question somewhere else, like Twitter or email or wherever, but no one ever does. It's starting to get lonely out there. It's starting to get very lonely. Very, very lonely. I don't know. I think, at least I hope that, as I skipped your question. Where's your question? Oh, look at that. I did. Joe says, would it be odd or wrong to have a table with some indexes that are page compressed, some row compressed, and some with no compression at all? No, I don't think so. I mean, it might not be like at first glance. I would probably be weirded out about it. At first glance, I'd probably like, what happened there. But there are valid reasons. Without digging into like the scant little that I remember about the compression documentation. Now there are certain values that like I believe it's string values, date values maybe that work better with page compression, and then like integer values work better with row compression, and some indexes don't compress well at all. In fact, with some indexes, if they have a lot of write activity, if they have a lot of modification activity, compression can actually cause some issue, or not issues, but compression can slow down modifications in some places. At least, and this is going off stuff that I remember from a long time ago when I was messing with it. It's probably not chapter and verse correct, but it's decent enough. It's a good enough memory for me to have that in my head. So Rowdy says the weight stats are awesome. I got into time-based index usage and operations. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, a lot of monitoring tools collect lots of cool stuff. And, it will be nice if they got some of the stuff got exposed more in the GUI, so that you didn't have to go writing crazy database queries to get it. I mean, on the other hand, it's cool that they let you go in there. Let's see. Alex says, what webcam do you use? I use a Logitech Brio. Yeah, it's a little dusty on top right now. It's the Logitech Brio. I like it a lot. I don't recommend using the microphone for it, but using it for a webcam is pretty good. Darren says, do you have any methodology you follow when auditing indexing? By auditing, do you mean like index changes, or do you mean like the current state of indexes, and if indexes should be kept or dropped or modified in some way? There's a slight difference. Not like a, well, it's a big difference. Current state. Yeah, so I mean, I love Blitz Index for that. Run it in mode 0 if you just want kind of like the important stuff on your bigger tables. Run it in mode 4 if you want absolutely everything. I'll go through and it prioritizes stuff for you in a pretty good way. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I think what I like best about it is that it gives you a really good view, assuming that your server has been up for a little bit, and assuming that you're not on a version where index rebuilds or perhaps some recent modifications have cleared out valuable usage statistics about your indexes. It gives you a really good view into if indexes are used or not, right? So when if how much, if at all, indexes overlap. So it's important to make sure that if you're going to go in and start adding indexes to help queries go faster, that you've cleaned up some of the cruft, some of the not so hot indexes in there that already exist. So the first thing I always look at, because it's the easiest to sort of pick out and say screw this, are like the unused indexes. So if indexes have millions of writes against them and no reads or a very low amount of reads, Blitz index will call that out, and you can pretty safely get rid of those. I keep everything as I keep a create and drop script for everything, so that I know. So like if I drop an index and something goes terribly wrong with the table, I can add that index back pretty easily. And then after that is when I look at the duplicate and borderline duplicate indexes, just because I quite often find that once I get rid of some of the unused stuff, more than a few of the duplicates will disappear with them. So I usually do the dupes and borderline dupes last, because those are a little bit more work, right? You have to look at the full index definition, the key columns, the order, the included columns, and then figure out if you can merge them together in some way that makes sense. And that's more brain work. That's not as easy as just saying that's been used 0 times, it's been written to 50 million times, it's gonna go. Just taking up space is not helping anything. And then so the next thing, next trip around will be the dupes and borderline dupes, and then after that I'll I have very mixed feelings about the missing index requests. They are certainly a good sign that we could have something better, we could have a helpful index on this table. The number of caveats to the indexes that get suggested are pretty big. But what I'll usually do is pick some of the really high value ones in there. Blitz index will give you an estimated benefit number. If it's over 5-10 million, then I'm okay, we're gonna go with this, and we're gonna see what happens, right? Because at that point, it's not going to be the best, most perfect, wonderful index in the world, but it's going to be a good enough bridge to get us to when we can figure out what would be. So if SQL Server is just absolutely screaming for some index, I'll go ahead and create it just to shut it up. And then, when I have a more intimate knowledge of the workload the query is running, then I'll be able to figure out what the better index is for that situation. Because it's not like the missing indexing is always wrong, but it's wrong at a good enough pace that I don't buy it for everything. It recommends columns and their ordinal position in the table, not by the absolute order that they should be in the where clause, or that they're in the where clause, or even by which one's most selective or anything. There's a lot of the optimizer doesn't really take sorts into account. It always seems to stick join columns in as included columns. There's just a lot of stuff about the missing index requests that they irk you when you've reached a certain point of query and index tuning. But up until then, the suggestions are probably better than anything you're going to come up with just staring at the workload, right? They're there for a reason, and they're usually a good enough bridge until you can really get in and fine tune things. It even says in the documentation it's not meant for fine grained index tuning. So read that carefully. If you need very specific advice, and don't tell anyone I said this. Use DTA instead. Just don't create every damn index it suggests. DTA will do a better job than the missing index requests. But DTA will ask for crazy banana bonkers town indexes too. DTA will ask for 11 indexes that are almost the same definition, just flipped around a little bit with slightly different includes or slightly different order of key columns. And it's he agrees. But so it does require adult supervision. The suggestions are better, but it still requires an adult to sit there and go through the suggestions and say yes or no to them. To me, DTA is usually a 4-letter word because I spend a lot of time cleaning up DTA messes where someone was just like, oh, look at these 100 indexes. We need those. And just like it's same or whatever. And 100 indexes get created. But, it needs adult supervision, like anything else. The suggestions are better than the missing index request DMVs, but it requires just as much adult supervision as the missing index requests. Darren says the unused is going to be helpful. Seems like there's a lot of indexes that don't have the correct leading edge column. Well, again, that's an intimate workload knowledge thing. That is not something that I can just say yes or no to here. Usually think of missing indexes as a need to index here, but this might not be. Yeah, it's like I said about, like I've been saying about missing indexes for a very long time is they're a lot like a crying baby, right? Like there's a lot of reasons that a baby could be crying, and it's up to you as the hopefully sober and caring adult to figure out exactly why that baby is crying and exactly what that baby needs to stop crying. It might be a burp, it might be a dirty diaper, it might be hungry, it just might want to do something, but might be bored. Babies get bored. Babies get bored and cry. It's like, I just want to do something else. I'm like, yeah, I get it, baby. I'm going to do something else. But yeah, it's up to you to kind of figure it out. It's the crying baby of performance tuning. Something is happening over here, and it's up to us to figure out how to fix that happening. So I don't know. It's interesting though. Like one of my pet peeves with the missing index requests is that when SQL Server has a query plan with an index spool in it, that index spool will get created and then thrown away every time the query runs, but no missing index request gets generated, either in the query plan or in the missing index DMVs. But DTA will suggest a pretty decent index to cover the index spool. Missing indexes, for some reason they overlook that. Some reason. I don't know why, but Microsoft stopped responding to my phone calls about these things. My emails just seem to bounce when I talk about this stuff. So. I don't know what to tell you. There's lots of stuff that I would love to make better. That I would love to make, like getting actionable, more actionable feedback more readily available to people. But not everything solves a big enough SAP customer problem. So not everything gets prioritized the way that I would. Instead, we get polybase, and we get polybase. We get Python, Java, and R. We get machine learning. we get lots of stuff, but we still have the same performance problems. Lots of stuff. Microsoft is not dancing with who they run in a lot of ways. I find that irritating. Artie says, I like the dubstep remix of this episode. Yes. So certainly a lot of noise behind me today. One of these days, I will be a very rich consultant who lives in a high rise surrounded by glass where there is no environmental anything, no noise, no bugs, no wind, no heat, nothing. Someday I'll be there. Someday. And when I am, I guess these webcasts will be a lot quieter. I don't know. Maybe I'll be too rich to do them too. Maybe I'll just have an army of SQL servants to do them. I'll just sit around eating caviar. Dallas offices are cheap. Yes, but they're in Dallas, which poses quite an issue for me because Dallas is too hot constantly. I don't have a car, and It's in Dallas. So that commute alone makes it not worthwhile. Anyway, we're about at the half-hour mark, and I have a lot of stuff to write. So I'm going to get going. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for doing this thing with me, and I will talk to you next week. Adios.